Hola amigos, hola amigas, welcome, bienvenido, croeso y salam, welcome to the channel y'all, Cheshniak Shimash. Today I am going to be talking about this VW Beetle. The VW Beetle has a history that goes back to the 1930s, even earlier than that. Now the reason why I picked this and why I picked an orange one, this is going back now to cars from my past. Let me bring you back. And let's get this unboxed. Now, my mum's friend Denise had an orange Beetle. This is going back to the late 70s. Beautiful car, absolutely gorgeous. Now, we lived in the house at the time. There was a road at the top, but then there was a steep bank to the house, and then there was the garden. So you could see the top of the road very clearly, but the cars were elevated, if you know what I mean. Anyway, what is this? Denise. When I was naughty, not that I was very naughty very often as a kid, my mum would always threaten to send me to the cottage homes, which was like a home for orphan children. It was only like a shallow threat if I was being naughty or whatever. And she would always say, right, that's it, Denise is coming in her car, and she's coming to take you to the cottage homes. One day, I was being naughty, and my mother said to me that you'll go to the cottage homes. Denise is coming to pick you up. And by absolute horrific chance, who should turn up while I'm looking out the window is Denise in her orange Beetle. I absolutely lost the plot. I'm not going to say I was never naughty again after that, but it definitely did teach me a lesson when I looked out the window and I saw the orange Beetle pull up and I thought I was going to the cottage homes. Anyway, that is my history to it. And I do remember going in it, and I remember going to the beach in it with my sister, my mum, and Denise driving, of course. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the sound it made, the smell of the interior, the noise of the engine right behind where we'd sit in the back. And as a little kid, it was just like a magical car. It was really fantastic. So the Volkswagen Beetle has always got a very, very close little thing close to my heart because of that story. Okay, so this model is made by Carrarama, and it's the 1/43 scale of the Volkswagen Beetle. And I have to say, by looking at the pictures as I'm looking at it now, that is a really nice little model. Really, really detailed on it. Very, very shiny. Nice bit of paintwork on it. It's not 100%. I can see the door handles would not have been the colour of the body, but it is definitely a lovely little model. I have to say I really do like it. Beautiful. Give it a bit of a polish up. It looks good. Right, okay, let's get some information about the car. The Volkswagen Beetle, officially the Volkswagen Type 1, informally in German, de Kafa, meaning beetle, in parts of the English-speaking world, the bug, known by many other nicknames in other languages, is a two-door rear-engine economy car intended for 5 occupants. Later Beetles were restricted to 4 people in some countries. That was manufactured and marketed by German automaker Volkswagen and from 1938 until 2003. So from 1938 to 2003, 21,529,464 of these little bugs were built. 15,444,858 were made in Germany, of which 330,251 of them were cabriolets, and 3,350,000 were made in Brazil. Assembly was in Germany, in Hanover, Emden, Ingolstadt, Austria, Belgium, Bosnia, Brazil, Finland, Indonesia, Ireland, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Nigeria, the Philippines, South Africa, Thailand, and in Venezuela. And they were designed by Ferdinand Porsche. The need for a people's car, Volkswagen in German, Its concept and its functional objectives were formulated by the leader of the Nazi Party, Adolf Hitler, who wanted a cheap, simple car to be mass-produced for his country's new road network. Members of the National Socialist Party, with an additional dues surcharge, were promised the first production, but the Spanish Civil War shifted most production resources to military vehicles to support the nationalists under Francisco Franco. Lead engineer Ferdinand Porsche and his team took until 1938 to finalize the design. Belabani is credited with first conceiving the original design for this car in 1925, notably by Mercedes-Benz on their website, including his original technical drawing. 5 years before, Porsche claimed to have done his initial version. The influence on Porsche's design of other contemporary cars, such as the Tatra V570, and the work of Joseph Gans, remains a subject of dispute. The result was the first Volkswagen and one of the first rearranged cars since the Brasa era. With 21,529,464 produced, the Beetle is the longest running and most manufactured car of a single platform ever made. Although designed in the 1930s, due to World War II, civilian Beetles only began to be produced in significant numbers by the end of the 1940s. The car was then internally designated the Volkswagen Type 1 and marketed simply as the Volkswagen. Later models were designated Volkswagen 1200, 1300, 1500, 1302 and 1303, the first three indicating engine displacement and the last two derived from the model number. The car became widely known in its home country as the Käfer, German for Beetle, and was later marketed under that name in Germany, and as the Volkswagen in other countries. For example, in France it was known as the Coccinelle, French for ladybug. The Beetle marked a significant trend, led by Volkswagen and then by Fiat and Renault, whereby the rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout increased from 2.6% of continental Western Europe's car production in 1946 to 26.6% in 1956. In 1959, even General Motors launched an air-cooled rear-engine car, the Chevrolet Corvair, which also shared the Beetle's flat engine and swing axle architecture. Over time, front-wheel drive and frequently hatchback body cars would become to dominate the European small car market. In 1974, Volkswagen's own front-wheel drive Golf hatchback succeeded the Beetle. In 1994, Volkswagen unveiled the Concept 1, a retro-themed concept car with a resemblance to the original Beetle, and in 1998 introduced the new Beetle built on the contemporary Golf platform, with styling recalling the original Type 1. It remained in production through 2010 and was succeeded in 2011 by the Beetle A5, the last variant of the Beetle, which was also more reminiscent of the original Beetle. Production ceased altogether by 2019. In the 1999 Car of the Century competition to determine the world's most influential car in the 20th century, the Type 1 came fourth, after the Ford Model T and Mini, and the Citroën DS. Although the Volkswagen Beetle was mainly the brainchild of Ferdinand Porsche and Adolf Hitler, the idea of a people's car is much older than Nazism, and has existed since the mass production of cars was introduced. In fact, Belaberne was able to prove in court in 1953 that Porsche's patents were Benari's ideas, and therefore Benari has since been credited with first conceiving the original design for his car in 1925. The car was designed to be as simple as possible mechanically. The suspension design used compact torsion bars instead of coil or leaf springs. According to 1972 commercial, the Beetle was nearly airtight and would briefly float. Mass production of civilian VW cars did not start until post-war occupation. The Volkswagen factory was handed over by the Americans to British control in 1945. It was to be dismantled and shipped to Britain. However, no British car manufacturer was interested in the factory. An official report included the phrases, "The vehicle does not meet the fundamental technical requirements of a motor car. It is quite unattractive to the average buyer. To build a car commercially would be completely uneconomic enterprise. The factory survived by producing cars for the British Army instead. Allied dismantling policy changed in late 1946 to mid-1947, although heavy industry continued to be dismantled until 1951. On 17th of February 1972, Beetle number 15,007,034 was produced, surpassing total production of the previous record holder, the Ford Model T. By 1973, total production was over 16 million, and by the 23rd of June 1992, over 21 million had been produced. Though extremely successful in the 1960s, experiencing its greatest sales growth in North America between 1960 and 1965, the Beetle was increasingly faced with stiff competition from more modern designs globally. The Japanese had refined rear-wheel drive, water-cooled front engines, small cars including the Datsun 510 and the Toyota Corona, whose sales in the North American market grew rapidly at the expense of Volkswagen in the late 1960s. Honda introduced the N600 based on the space-efficient transverse engine, front-wheel drive layout of the original Austin Mini to the North American market in late 1969, and upgraded the model to the Honda Civic in 1972. The Japanese Big Three would soon dominate compact auto sales in North America. In 1971, Ford introduced its Pinto, which had some market impact as a low-cost alternative in the wake of the drop of the US dollar against the Deutschmark that same year. As the 1960s came to a close, Volkswagen faced increasingly stiff competition from European cars as well. The Beetle was faced with competition from the new designs like the Fiat 127 and Renault 5, and more robust designs based on the Austin Mini layout such as the Super Minis. German competitors Ford and Opel also enjoyed strong sales of modern smaller cars like the Ford Escort and the Opel Kadett. Volkswagen's attempt to boost the power of their air-cooled motor to meet the demands of higher highway speeds in the late 1960s, then comply with new pollution control regulations, caused problems for reliability and fuel efficiency that impaired the reputation of the aging design. Safety issues with the Beetle coming under increasing scrutiny, culminating in the 1972 release of their rather scathing report. During the early 1970s, sales of the Beetle in Europe and North America plummeted. The Golf did not kill Beetle production, nor did the smaller Polo, which was launched a year later. Production of the Beetle continued in smaller numbers at other German factories until the 19th of January 1978, when mainstream production shifted to Brazil and Mexico. Markets where low operating cost was an important factor. After this shift in production, sales in Europe did not stop, but became very low. Beetle sedans were produced for US markets until July 1977 and for European markets until 1985, with other companies continuing to import cars produced in Mexico after 1985. The Beetle convertible cabriolet ended production as 1979 models on the 31st of January 1980. By 2002, over 21 million Type 1s had been produced, but by 2003, annual production had dropped to 30,000 from a peak of 1.3 million in 1971. VW announced the end of production in June 2003, and the final original Type 1 VW Beetle, number 21,529,464, rolled off the production line at Puebla, Mexico on the 30th of July 2003. 65 years after its original launch. This last Beetle, nicknamed El Rey, Spanish for the King, after a legendary Mexican song by Jose Alfredo Jimenez, was delivered to the company's museum in Wolfsburg, Germany. 1950 to 1959 models. During this period, myriad changes were made throughout the vehicle, beginning with the availability of hydraulic brakes and a folding fabric sunroof in 1950. The rear window of the VW Beetle evolved from a divided or split oval to a singular oval. The change occurred between October 1952 and March 1953. In 1955, the separate brake lights were discontinued and were combined into a new, larger tailgate housing. The traditional VW semaphore turn signals were replaced by conventional flashing directional indicator lamps for North America. In 1956, the Beetle received what would become one of its more distinctive features, a set of twin chrome tailpipes. Models for North America gained taller bumpers, guards, and tubular override bars. In 1958, the Beetle received a revised instrument panel, and a larger rectangular rear window replaced the previous oval design. The largest change to date for the Beetle was in 1965. The majority of the body stampings were revised, which allowed for significantly larger windows. The windshield increased in area by 11% and was now slightly curved rather than flat. Door windows increased accordingly by 6%, and door vent window edges were canted slightly back. Rear side windows 17.5% and the rear window 19.5% bigger. The result was a more open, airy, modern look. A number of safety improvements were made in order to comply with the new American safety regulations. These included trigger-operated outside door handles, a secondary front hood latch, collapsing steering column, soft vent window latches, rotary love compartment latch, and the instrument panel knobs labelled with pictographs. In 1970, a new L Luxus package was introduced, including, among other items, twin map pockets, dual rear ashtrays, full carpeting, a passenger side visor vanity mirror, and rubber bumper mouldings. All Beetles received an engine upgrade. The optional 1500cc engine was replaced by a 16cc with twin-port cylinder heads and a larger, relocated oil cooler. So there we go, guys. That is my little video on the mid-range Beetle, and specifically the orange Beetle, which frightened me to death, but I still loved it after all of that. So I hope you've enjoyed. This car has such amazing history, and some good things can come from bad, and this is definitely one of them. It'll always hold a fond memory in my heart for its look, for its sound, and just simply being what it is, a Volkswagen Beetle. So I hope you've enjoyed. It's a fantastic little model. Can't wait to get it into the display unit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.